Hey guys, welcome. Fedora Friday number 23. Fedora Friday number 23. Yes. I guess Michael Jordan, right? Yeah, that's one of those mythical number 23s, right? But yeah, it's been a great week. Hopefully you guys are all having a great week. Again, every time I get, the Friday or Tuesdays come upon me, I'm like, wow, that happened already, right? So yeah. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Getting ready for my trip to Puerto Rico. I got my man Ian in the crowd here. What's up, Ian? And we got Nathan. Ian and Nathan just joining us. What's up, Nathan?
Hey, good afternoon, Hat Fellows. How are
Hello,
you?
hello. On the road again, Nathan?
Not really. Not till later this afternoon.
All
I
right.
just finished lunch actually, so I just kind of popping in before I headed back to the office.
Yeah. Sounds good. Good to have
How
you.
you been?
Doing well. Getting ready for Puerto Rico. This will be the last show before Puerto Rico, unless something happens unplanned, and I end up doing another show. But right now, as it stands, the last show before Puerto Rico, and then we take a little bit of a week break, and then come back strong the following week.
Nice, very nice. Yeah, I hope you
Yeah.
have safe travels and yeah, today I have my PJ Strat on.
All
I
right.
actually wore this yesterday. I rotate my hats pretty frequently. I kind of have my 3 to 4 go tos, but I
Yeah.
wore this hat yesterday, and it's really broke in. It's starting to really just fit like a glove,
Yeah.
and it felt so good yesterday. So I went with it again today. So how about yourself? What do you got on today?
Well, I got on my tried and true, my knockaround, the Knox Tom and Jerry from the '60s. This is a hat I got from Kevin Gerber. One of
Nice.
several that I've gotten from Kevin. It's probably, if I had to pick one, this is my go-to. It's probably one of my most worn hats and my most beat up hats. Like the sweatband's pretty brittle. But man, I can't get enough of this hat. It just has like that right shape, you know what I mean? Like that classic stingy brim shape that I love. And I just can't get it. It's the one I reach for typically when I don't know what hat I want to wear.
Yeah, and I put on the board in a few. I mean, I think we've got some. Gosh, we've got topics for the next, I think, 4, 5, 6 weeks. But I
Yeah.
put on there recently a show, so stay tuned, folks. But it's basically like, hey, if you had to have 3 hats, like,
Yeah.
what hats? What do you need to take into consideration?
Yeah.
Uh, the occasion, the color, whatever you're going to get into, because I was looking around the other day and I had like 30. I got 30, almost 30 hats, and I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, if I had to leave in an emergency, what's the 3 hats I would take that would kind of like cover everything that I'm going to encounter. And
Yeah.
much like the one you have on, like you're probably gonna grab that one that's just easy peasy,
Yeah.
comfort food hat,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that's probably a topic maybe later in March. But yeah, I think we got
Yeah.
some great content coming up for the hat wearers of the world.
Yeah, man. I appreciate the topics. I mean, besides today, because today was also one of the movies that you had suggested, and I had postponed it a little bit to get a little bit closer to baseball time. But yeah, I love the idea of threes, right? I mean, in the watch world, it's very common to kind of have do like the land, sea, and air, right? You have a field watch, you got an aviation watch, and a dive watch. So I think that the threes are a good way to at least get the conversation started. And obviously, Paul has come up with a number about 10. And obviously that's going to mean different things to different people. But just the fact that we have that conversation, you'll kind of see where folks kind of generally land in terms of, what is your framework? What is your classification system? Because I know flat caps got to be in there somewhere. A proper Hamburg, a Panama, so there are going to be ways. And then I think that a useful thing is just usage, right? So what are the 3 hats you find yourself going to the most, right? And I feel like that's going to ring a bell in some way for a lot of different folks that watch the channel that are into hats.
Yeah, and I can compare it to like my boots and the bourbon. So like if I had to pick three bourbons, I'd want the daily sipper, that I can just sip on
Yeah.
easy. You need that like Friday night pour after a long day or a long week, and then you need like that special deal. And like the boots, same principle. You have that boot that's just kind of a daily wear, and
Yeah.
then you've got like you're taking your wife out on the town boot, and then you've got that like special occasion boot. So I
Yeah.
love the concept, and I think we've got some really good topics coming up. I threw a new one on there last night, I think, because we're right on the cusp of the spring, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of going back to hat etiquette, but it's really segued off into its own topic,
Yeah.
is a felt versus straw season.
Yeah.
And like there's segments out there that they laugh at that. They just think that's the biggest joke. Like what there's a season, you got to wear a certain type. And then
Right.
others are maniacal about it, where like, hey, that day right there, you've got to cut your felts, pack them up, don't wear them again, and you got to go to straw. So I
Yeah.
put that topic on there of like, hey, is that still the norm? Is it a real thing? What's everybody's thoughts about that? Is there truly a felt season? Is there
Yeah.
a straw season? But yeah, some great content coming up. I'm excited for the channel, and we got our main man Paul here. Paul, I watched the other day the video because I had to take another look at that white Western hat, and it's still
Yeah.
like sticking in the back of my mind. And I thought that darn Paul, I was cussing Paul the other day
Yeah.
because he put this hat. I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta have that hat. But I've got these other projects. So I'm like, all right, I gotta be patient.
Yeah. Paul's gonna become another four-letter word in the in Nathan's household.
Well, we'll have to see. I think it's a light blue, which is I did it in the light blue because whilst it's a typical Western style hat, I've never seen a light blue one before.
Yeah.
Now, it might be because I'm in a course in the UK and we don't exactly see many cowboys walking down the high street. But even so, I've gone into a number of Western shops and I've not seen that color before. So I really quite like it. So I'll have a look. I'm sure I've got some more of that felt anyway.
Yeah.
You just happen to be my size, so I might have to make another one to fit me. Nathan and I are 59 and a half, you see. So what can you say, Luke? I mean,
Yeah. Like I said, you have to take the good with the well, I better break out the wallet, right? But yeah, we actually were talking about, and we were just mentioning you, Paul, because one of the shows that was suggested, and Nathan was just talking about it, was the ideal number of hats, right? And we've had that conversation piecemeal several times, and I feel like we'll ramp it up from like the one hat person, because that's the most extreme, right? Besides the fact that the no hat person, right? But you have the one hat person, they only have one hat, their signature hat, and then take it to like the threes, because we've always talked about the rules of three. And then I know, Paul, you had like a 10 to 12 framework that you've talked about on the channel. And then we'll kind of go there and everything in between, depending on who joins us on screen. That way folks can kind of get an idea. And I think what happens is that once we start this conversation, they may not be full answers, but at least it'll give the viewers something to think about in terms of how, one, if they have a collection that goes well beyond that, which might be the case for a lot of folks, and they want to pare it down, they have sort of a good number they can pare down their collection to. Or folks that are starting, well, maybe they have at least a good framework to kind of jumpstart and maybe get a little bit more efficient at the hat collection.
Yeah, I think what happens is that you start collecting perhaps in the very base colors of gray, brown, maybe blue, black, something like that.
By color.
And then you start going with the styles. So you might start off with a trilby because you're not really sure about the brim width. And then you might get a little bit more adventurous with a wider brim and maybe a slightly different crown to the hats. And then you start thinking about, how can you coordinate this with your clothes? So then you start thinking, you've got your number of styles. Now you need colors. So before you know where you're at sort of 8, 9, 10 hats. And then you think, and now it's summertime. So now what am I going to wear? And
Right.
before you know where you are, again, you're up to 12 hats or more. So it's a very interesting subject, but I think it's something that it's whatever number works for the individual.
Oh, did
And
we
I
lose
think,
Paul?
hmm?
Oh, there
Oh,
he is. There he is. Okay.
no, he's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's whatever works for the individual, and whatever works for the individual's wife.
Yeah, I think Paul mentioned before. He's like, hey, you know, sometimes we get up and we're like, okay, I know the hat I'm going to wear. What else? What else am I going to wear with it? Like I do that with my boots. Like,
Yeah.
you know, all right, I want to wear those boots today. All right, now let me just dress everything according to that.
Around that.
Yeah.
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 I
Yeah.
love
I'm with you
that.
there. Yeah. Yeah.
And we've been seeing more flat caps. And Nathan, I've been enjoying the flat caps. You know, that's something that I talked
Yeah,
about on
man.
the channel. I've gotten
Keep
more
one
into.
here.
Yeah. They're just a dream to travel with. I think I'm going to be traveling to Puerto Rico with just a flat cap, with the idea is maybe I come back home with something else, you know, and then the flat cap can just store really easily. So so we'll see. We'll kind of see how it plays out. But I'm excited about that, and you know, excited about today's topic.
Yeah, I went on a flat cap rampage. I ended up now I had one and now I've got like 6,
Yeah.
and that's all in the last week. So I was just like, you know, let me get this, that, and so they all came in, and yeah, with the change of the season, I'm trying to figure out like what's, you know, it's such an easy wear
Yes.
with flat cap. So like I'm trying to fit it into the rotation because I do enjoy them. They're so easy.
Yeah.
They pair up easy with wardrobes. So yeah, it's just something else to kind of add to the collection. So hey guys, I'm gonna jump off and look forward to the continued conversation. I think The Natural is one of the greatest movies of all time,
Wow. Yeah.
and some excellent hats on top of everything else that the movie offers. But
Yeah.
definitely Robert Redford, one of the goats, and a couple other great actors in that film as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, just a great film, and I look forward to you really screenshotting some really nice looking hats in there. So Paul, always good to see you. Luke, always a pleasure to share some screen time with the mighty Luke, and I will sign off with a little hat tip.
That's right. Stay adding, my friend.
Terrific.
Nathan.
Yeah.
Shout out to Nathan. He's been such a great contributor to the channel. In the short amount of time that he's been on the channel, he's contributed so much, particularly with the topics. And wow, it's just amazing. Always amazing to have Nathan. And today's movie was one of Nathan's suggestions as well. But before we get to the movie, I just want to make sure, Paul, did he have any new news or anything you wanted to talk about?
No, I mean I've only come on for a very brief time today
Yeah.
because I'm a bit late. I've not been too well this week, and I've been
Oh no.
been out of action, so I'm a bit behind on a couple of builds that I'm doing.
Yeah.
I've delivered 2 or 3 hats this week, and I've got another 2 behind me that I'm building, and I think I've got another 8 that I've got stacking up. So which is lovely and really good, but it sort of means that I'm a bit strapped for time.
Yeah. Understood, my friend. Hopefully, you're going to be on the mend soon if you're not already. And you know,
good, thank you.
understood. And we all been there, you know.
No, just had something that just sort of knocked me for 6 for a day or so, and you know, I don't very often get under the weather, so I just thought, nope, I've got to stop what I'm doing, because you know what it's like when you're working with your hands. If you carry on when you're not really feeling it, then you're not going to be your best,
Right.
you know. And I owe it to my customers who are spending their hard-earned money and putting their trust in me to do the best I can. Now,
Right.
you know, the best I can might not be the best of what anybody can, but it's certainly the best I can. And that's, you know, you have to sometimes say, nope, that's it, and then come back to it. Like today, I've come back to it. You know, I've taken, these are a couple of beaver felts I'm working on, and I had to soak them and then mold them, and they'll dry overnight, and then I will start pouncing them, and I've made sweatbands up for them already. So you know, probably by the end of Sunday, I'll have those 2 made, and then I'll be back on track. So that's that's the good news, if you like.
All
Yeah.
right, all right.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds great, Paul. Like I said, always happy to have you on here. Like I said, I think I'm very similar in that I don't get sick that often, but when it does, I kind of turn into like a little bit of me personally. I turn into a little bit of a baby because I go down pretty hard. So at that point,
Yeah.
I've not had. I think it's been a little bit since I've been under the weather, but it always happens at least once a year. And I go down, and at some point when you guys see me on here, I'll try to be as open and honest about it. And it might not be the best show, but I'll do my best.
No, it's great. Look, it's always good to catch up. But I'll fly for now, and I'll probably dip in and dip out of listening to the show whilst I'm working here. So have a great show. I've just seen that Ian's actually on listening today. So hi to Ian. I haven't spoken to Ian for a little while, but I hope he's well and everything's going fine. And we'll catch up very soon. Yeah.
All right, Paul.
All right.
Speedy recovery, my friend. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. All right, Paul John Murphy. I mean, again, I love the Good Luke's network here. They come on in. Like I said, there's no obligation to stay for any length of time. I just have the open invite. Folks that pop in, they pop out, and I love it. And then Ian just says, hi, Paul. It's always good to kind of check in. Paul just admitted that he's been a little bit under the weather, but like I said, no doubt he's going to pull through and give his best with the hats he's working on. So Paul, speedy recovery, my friend. That gets us to the topic today, right? This is Nathan's suggestion. It's one of my all-time favorite movies of all time. And you know what that means? That means I always get nervous and anxious about doing the movie justice. And then ultimately the process always repeats itself in that I just say, man, I'm just going to do what I can do. And doesn't mean we can't pick up this movie. This is one of those movies that are so iconic, right? For a lot of folks, it's the ultimate, not just baseball movie, but the ultimate just movie, right? There's such a thing here. There's so many parallels in here to like real ball players, real events. And obviously Robert Redford is one of those like all-time classic leading men, right? We mentioned Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid from, I believe, 1969 in a recent Fedora Friday. And Jedi says, haven't seen it in forever. Need to watch it again. Yes, this is a movie that you can rewatch all the time. Matter of fact, growing up as a teenager, I would rewatch it every time I saw it, right? I mean, since I was a teenager, right? The movie came out in 1984, right? So, it's one of those movies that as you watch, because the story is timeless, right? So when you think about, if you're a historian, especially a baseball historian, you can see a lot of parallels here. And those, I mean, it just shows you why this is such a good story. But let me just show some photos. I don't have a ton of photos, but you at least will get to see a flavor of some of the hats in here. And because of when the time this movie takes place, now I believe it's during the 30s, you're going to see hats, as in a lot of the movies that we cover here that are from the 30s. And you can see here the outfit on Roy Hobbs, right? Now, Roy Hobbs is a country boy, I believe from Iowa, right? So he's a baseball player. The movie opens up with him about to get on a train to go meet up with a baseball scout who are going to take him to go get evaluated by, I believe, the Chicago Cubs, right? So, and as Roy's on the train, he starts reminiscing, and he's wearing this hat. Man, now what a great hat, right? It's kind of a little bit of an Indiana Jones-ish kind of vibe to it. It's got a nice brim. Man, does it go well on Robert Redford, man. I don't know who supplied the hats for the Natural, but man, they did a great job, and it's right in line with that Indiana Jones, right? Right, we're talking about 1984 here. So yeah, I gotta imagine that this was probably some kind of influence, but the wardrobe and the style of this movie is fantastic. Besides being a baseball movie, so if you're a baseball fan, man, is it awesome. And here's the thing that always gets me. right? Besides just everything about this movie is the opening, right? When he starts thinking back about his childhood, right? He's on the train about to go meet up with the baseball scout that scouted him for the Chicago Cubs, right? He's a teenager, right? Young, very innocent, very excited. And he's reminiscing, and what he reminisces is about his childhood with his dad. Now, I don't know for sure, but the dad's hat looks very similar, right? So you can see him in the montage here of him thinking back, and his dad's basically, hitting the fly balls to him, and he's catching them out in the fields. I believe this is Iowa, right? So in the cornfields, anybody seen Field of Dreams, you think about Iowa as well. But yeah, so he's out there. His dad's wearing this fedora, right, with his overalls, obviously a farmer, and it just brings you back memories, right? Everybody has those memories of their father figure. If you didn't have your dad, maybe it was your uncle, your granddad, some kind of figure. It could have just been your coach, hitting you fly balls, and you're out there in the fields, carefree as can be. And it just brought back such great memories. And you can see here, right, this fedora. Again, it looks very similar to the one that Roy's wearing, but I'm not sure if it's exactly it, but I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think they go into that in the movie, but it's just amazing. You can see him here in this scene. He's drawing up a strike zone for his son to be able to throw against the barn, right? And at some point, Roy throws the ball right through the barn. I love it. I love it. Yeah, it said, and Nathan says, "Holy cow, is that the same hat?" That's what I'm thinking to myself, because it looks very much like the same hat. And you would know that Roy would be that kind of guy that thinks so much of his dad, right? He's such a respectful kid that chances are, maybe his dad had passed on, or maybe what happened was, because I think at this point, this dad hadn't passed on. They don't really go into that, right? Whether his dad was still alive when he's making the train trip. But you can imagine maybe if his dad was still there, he said, "Here, take my hat," right? It's such a great, yeah. Is there a book? Yes. This is based on a book called The Natural. Is released in 1952. The author was Bernard Malamud. I believe that's the name of the author. And man, I have not read the book. You guys already know I'm not very well read, but maybe somebody else. I know Ian's a very well-read individual, but you guys that are interested in reading the book, it is, I believe it's called The Natural, and it's by Bernard Malamud in 1952. So, but yeah, so that's immediately when I was rewatching the movie, I was like, holy cow, is that the same fedora that his dad's wearing? And also, man, his dad is like there in his overalls, right? It's country guy wearing a fedora, hitting fly balls to his son. I just love that. So I couldn't help but just grab some photos, some screenshots, and you can see here a little bit of the profile of the hat. Is still a little hard to tell whether it's the same hat, right? Obviously, the hat could look very different on somebody else, but it does look like the hat that the dad is wearing has some brim trim. I can't tell if the one that Roy is wearing has brim trim, but the one here in this scene could very well looks like it has brim trim, right? So I don't know. Either way, sharp looking hats. Whether it was a similar looking hat, maybe that's why Roy is wearing it. Maybe it's not the same one, but right, a lot of kids, they grow up emulating their dad. They want to look like their dad, right? We talked about that endlessly. And again, even if it's not the same fedora, maybe Roy's wearing it because it reminds him of how his dad looked. So I really love that as a kid. And you could see him, reminiscing about, playing his early days playing baseball and bonding with his dad, right? And this is a young Roy Hobbs wearing a flat cap, right? He's got a big old smile on his face, and he's just there playing with his dad, right? And it's such a heartwarming scene. This movie really tugs at all the right heartstrings, right? So, like I said, it doesn't take much, and it's got you hooked. So you get to see Roy on this train reminiscing about his younger days, right? And here's another character that a lot of folks know, but it's not even a person. It's Wonder Boy, right? So he's reminiscing. He reminisces about the origins of Wonder Boy. And Wonder Boy is really just a bat that he carved himself out of a tree that was struck by lightning, right? So he goes through and whittles this wood and makes his own bat, and then carves the name Wonder Boy on it. And this Wonder Boy bat essentially becomes another character in the movie, right? And I'll try not to spoil it, right? So, but you guys all kind of know that seen the movie knows what happens with Wonder Boy. Man, what a great this movie! Like I said, it has all the right angles. And then he's thinking about the folks that he left behind. Besides his dad, his childhood girlfriend, and we'll talk about her a little bit later. Her name is Iris, and Iris comes back a little bit later on in the story. So you can see here, like I said, everybody that, even if you didn't play baseball, get scouted by a major league team, you kind of remember maybe going out, maybe you're from a small town and you went and got your first big job, your first big opportunity. Maybe you went away to college, right? And you're sitting there on your way to that event, to that job or to that college, and you're reminiscing about how you got here. That's the vibe that this movie gives off. And it's so awesome. So later on, as we get onto the train, we see that they're on their way to a fair, and then we see and we get to meet on the train a character called Max Mercy, who's played by Robert Duvall. Man, I love Robert Duvall. Obviously, you know I'm a big fan of The Godfather. Robert Duvall always has these kind of like, he just lights up the screen, right? Like the way he comports himself, like he's a guy that you can't take your eyes off. And he's a very small guy. And you can see here this flat cap on him. Just an awesome look. So at this fair, you can see a variety of hats. And it just looks awesome. The costuming on this movie is impeccable. Excellent flat caps, just a variety of fedoras. Just amazing. And you can see that hat from the people on the hats on the heads behind them. This gentleman wears like kind of wearing like a Western and flavored, almost kind of looks like a gambler to me, but maybe a little bit more festival looking. But just amazing hats in this movie. Like I said, I can't do it justice. So he's on the train, and you can see another shot here of Max Mercy. Throughout the film, he's mostly wearing what I believe is a Panama hat. Right, he's got a gray sweatband, very, very sharp with his pinstripe suit here. So Max Mercy is a journalist, right? He's a media guy. A little bit of a sleazy, element to him. He's obviously can be a little gruff, and so he's on this train that Roy is on, and he's there because he's following basically the best baseball player in the big leagues at that point. Is this gentleman. And if you know this guy, you can know who he's trying to portray here. This guy's a dead ringer for the great Babe Ruth. Now, they don't call him Babe Ruth, right? They call him the Whammer. But this is a guy who's like considered the greatest baseball player in the big leagues at the time. And he's on this train on his way to Chicago, just like Roy is. They strike up a conversation. Max is there having, reading a paper, and they're reading a paper, and essentially Max is looking at the story of two big athletes that were gunned down recently, right? And one was an Olympian, another one was, I believe, a football star, and he's talking about this to the Whammer, and the Whammer could care less, right? It's like, he's a little concerned because of what's happening, and somebody's targeting athletes, but yeah, he doesn't really give too much to it. And then the guy who's scouting, Roy, comes by to introduce himself to both Max and to the Whammer. And this is Sam Simpson, who's played by John Finnegan. You can see here Sam has this derby on, is very, very sharp. At least it looks like a derby from what I can gather. But yeah, just some very, very sharp hats in here. So he's in there talking, making small talk with the Whammer, being very respectful, and introducing himself to Max, and essentially saying, hey, I'm here to go to Chicago too. I got my star recruit on with me. He's a great pitcher. You might have heard of him. He's like, he pitched 8 no-hitters, and they're very dismissive. The Whammer as well as Max are very dismissive of Roy. Roy eventually comes over, introduces himself, is very respectful, and then when he sees some of the disrespect coming back, not necessarily towards him, but towards the scout, Sam, he actually goes and defends Sam, right? He's like, hey, what you watch yourself, mister, right? So it goes to show you the type of person, the protector that Roy is, right? He can take it himself, right? But if it comes to somebody else, he's going to go and defend them. It kind of shows you how Roy was raised. Ian says, apparently Roy Hobbs fedoras were made by Golden Gate Hats in California, who now only make wool hats. Wow. Thanks for adding that, Ian. I appreciate it. So there you go, Golden Gate Hats. That name always comes up. I think they have been a major supplier for several movies. So yeah, thank you, Ian. I appreciate it. So the story unfolds. You get a situation where they're both on their way to Chicago. They make a stop at a county fair, and the Whammer's there. Everybody's there to kind of see the Whammer, but Roy's there as well. He's kind of showing off his pitching skills, right? And you can see the silhouette here. You can see the folks there watching him. He's putting on a display over with the what's that? I don't know what that game is called, but when they have the 3 bottles, and then you take a ball and you try to knock down all 3 bottles and you win a prize. And Roy's consistently knocking them down, right? So you get a little bit of a situation where you have kind of a little bit of a friendly competition, right? The Whammer comes over and say, "Hey, why don't you throw that ball over here and I'll knock it into the moon." So you get a situation where Sam starts defending Roy, and he says, "Hey, Roy will only need 3 pitches to strike you out," right? And the Whammer is like, whatever. He's like so dismissive, but there's this young lady there, right? You can see the young lady here in the background, and we'll get to her a little bit more later. But she's there egging them on. So at some point, the Whammer's there, sees the lady, and says, "Yeah, let's do it." And you kind of know what would happen here, right? So I mean, again, the Whammer is the greatest baseball player that exists at the time. So he's there like, who is this kid? I'm gonna knock this ball into next Tuesday. Roy, sure enough, strikes him out on 3 straight pitches, right? And Max is there like he can't believe what he's seeing, right? He's like, this is the Whammer, right? And you can see the scout there. The scout is there catching in his derby. I think that's the derby. And he's got the mitt, and Roy is like hurting his hand, right? So it goes to show you the prowess that Roy has, right? And we'll get a little bit more into that later on, right? Because Roy gets scouted as a pitcher, right? But he's an insane hitter, right? He's not even shown this in the movie up until this point. He's just there scouted as a pitcher, which is very, very similar to like the real Babe Ruth, right? The real Babe Ruth is considered the greatest hitter, one of the greatest, if not the greatest hitter of all time. But many consider him the greatest baseball player of all time because he also was a great pitcher. Right before he was renowned as a hitter, he was a renowned pitcher. And again, you can see some of that influence that probably Malamud had for creating some of these characters. So you can see here the face, right? Now, the one difference here, obviously, if you're a big fan of baseball, you know that Babe Ruth was a left-handed hitter. The Whammer here is obviously batting righty. So they didn't keep that true to the real Babe Ruth, but it's just what this character represents, right? And the fact that you have Roy here facing off, right? You kind of know about the essentially competition, right? You're only as good as your competition, right? Like if you can beat, greater competition, that shows others and everybody and yourself what you're really made of. So it really sets up what kind of talent Roy has by setting him up against the greatest hitter you would ever face at that point. And he strikes him out on 3 straight pitches in the middle of a field, no less. And this lady's watching. She's there really essentially kind of there hounding the Whammer, right? She's really interested in the Whammer until she sees Roy strike out the Whammer in 3 straight pitches. Now, all of a sudden, her attention's on full focus on Roy, for better or worse. And this is just another shot of that Panama on Max Mercy. A little bit later, that other gentleman that isn't wearing a hat is Michael Madsen, and we'll get to him a little bit. Well, we won't really see more of Michael Madsen because he doesn't really wear a fedora, but he is a baseball player, a Major League Baseball player known as Bump Bailey, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that later on. But just wanted to show a little bit more of the Panama on Max Mercy. This is another shot of that Panama. I think it looks really great with that pinstripe suit. The cigar just completes the outfit. But anyway, leaving back at the story, this is a mysterious lady that's on the train, obviously following the Whammer, then dedicates her full attention to Roy. and she's just, like I said, a very mysterious lady, right? It's got some very, very interesting eyes, right? Like there's like a darkness to this lady, and you can see here, right? It's got the big hat on, right? And she's apparently her name is Harriet Bird, and she's played by an actress called Barbara Hershey. So you can see here, she goes and she kind of stalks Roy, right? And you can see here, this is another scene that I probably should have presented a little sooner, but in that point, like after strike two, the whammer goes and points his bat out as if he's going to hit a home run. Now, if you guys know about baseball history, you guys know that there's a myth, right? I want to say myth because some folks think it's fact. Some folks think it is fact. Other folks think that it's more of a tall tale of Babe Ruth pointing into the stands at one point and hitting a long home run into the stands. Essentially, it's called the called shot, right? So this is kind of a nod to the called shot. And you can see Harriet there in the background. So long story short, Harriet ends up being that lady in the papers that's stalking athletes, right? She's stalking star athletes, and she's shooting them down, right? So she was there after the whammer, but when Roy goes and strikes out the whammer, she sets his eyes on him, essentially sets him up to meet at his hotel room and guns Roy down. Right. And that's kind of where we take the hiatus, right? Later on, we see a middle-aged Roy Hobbs essentially trying to break back into baseball, right? So he's teenage Roy Hobbs, gets gunned down, kind of disappears, right? And then resurfaces as a middle-aged man, right? Or close to that, and trying to get back into baseball. So you can see here, like I said, this story is about opportunity, but also mostly about second opportunities, right? So the story picks up as Roy, as this middle-aged man trying to break back into baseball. At some point gets discovered again, right? So, but this time as a hitter, right? He gets scouted by the New York Knights. And then the funny part is seeing him interact with his coaching staff, who's looking at this guy, and they're like incredulous as to why this middle-aged man was scouted for their baseball team, even though their baseball team sucks, right? The New York Knights are not a good baseball team, but they're still like, we're not that desperate that we need this middle-aged, guy, this middle-aged rookie. So you can see the two coaches. The head coach is played by Wilford Brimley. So that's you definitely have seen Wilford Brimley in a lot of things. His name is Pop Fisher in here. You can see him in this fedora in this scene. And his assistant coach is Red Blow. Now I think that's right. I think his name is definitely Red. I think it's Red Blow. And he's played by Richard Farnsworth, another great actor. He's just has this kind of folksy. He's kind of like an older version of Sam Elliott in my mind, right? He has kind of had that Sam Elliott kind of a swagger, but much older. So yeah, I think Richard Farnsworth does a great job in here. You can see kind of this hat on him as he's kind of getting his shoe shine, talking to Roy. Now he's the one that's essentially Roy's biggest defender, right? So Pop doesn't think much of Roy at all. It's Red that realizes that, hey, this team sucks. So you can see here this scene here where when Roy reports to assignment to the coaches, and Pop's not giving him the light of day. Yeah, no problem, Jedi. Thanks for joining me. Have a great one. Catch you next week. Well, maybe not next week because I'll be in Puerto Rico, but 2 weeks. See you, Jedi. So yeah, you can see the interaction here, and Red is, sitting there like, hey man, we're desperate. And Pop has nothing for it. And this is kind of like a line here that I just couldn't help but chuckle, and I wanted to kind of in there. It goes, fella, you don't start playing ball at your age, you retire. Right. So it's like I said, the angry old man in Pop, he's just like, I'm desperate, my team sucks, and they send me this middle-aged rookie. So, it's like it's just funny watching this curmudgeon in Pop, and essentially Roy proves himself, right? So at some point, Roy is benched, right? So Pop has no intention of playing Roy, but the team gets so bad, and not just that, the character Bump Bailey, who's the guy that plays right field, Roy's position, he's essentially on the take, right? So the owner is trying to deliberately lose and make the team lose. He's bribing Bump Bailey. Bump Bailey essentially is flubbing plays, screwing up the team, which is a nod, I think, to the Chicago Black Sox scandal of 1919. So there's that element as well. I love some of like the analogies to real historic events in this movie. And at some point, Pop gets so frustrated. He has no intention to play Roy, but he gets so frustrated with Bump that he puts Roy on. Right? He tells Roy, "Well, let's go to report for batting practice." And Roy is upset, right? Because Roy's like, "I've been waiting here this whole time. You won't give me the time of day. I came here to play baseball." But then Roy shows up at batting practice and hits like basically every ball into the stands, right, for home runs. Right, so he shows off his hitting abilities. We saw his pitching ability when he was a teenager, but his hitting ability was every bit as good. And at some point, he's like, so like incredulous, like he starts examining Wonder Boy, right? So Roy is still using Wonder Boy. Pop is skeptical. He wants to check the bat out, right? And eventually it goes out where Bump starts doing so poorly that he eventually takes him out of the game, puts Roy in, and has that famous line, "Roy knocked the cover off the ball." And that's what Roy does, literally knocks the cover off the baseball and wins the game for the team and essentially takes over, right? He becomes the starting player and becomes a fan favorite among the New York Knights. Interesting story, right? Again, it's a story of opportunity, of second opportunities, right? Redemption. And there's a lot of symbolism, right? There's a lot of things in terms of like the evil in the world, right? Like Harriet, I think, is part of that like evil that's represented, symbolized in this movie, right? And for Roy, he's able to overcome that. But again, it's not easy. One thing is the character of Iris, right? Iris comes out, I believe that's her name. Iris, his childhood girlfriend, finds him because at some point Roy starts making the papers because of his prodigious hitting, right? She sees him, goes and seeks him out, and they kind of have a reunion. And Iris is played by Glenn Close, right? Famous actress Glenn Close, and she has some really great ladies' hats in this movie, right? So it's the chemistry between Roy and Iris is really good. We talked about that, in previous Fedora Fridays. It's a really good chemistry. So she goes out and watches him play. You can see some of the hats in the baseball field, right? On the folks that are watching the games. Some really great fedoras in here. And for the ladies, you got the ladies' hats that are being shown, primarily by Iris. But you do see several of them throughout this movie. This movie is just chock full of hats. Like I said, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this movie justice in terms of the hats. But I just wanted to show some photographs. This movie is really easy to find. I'm not sure if it's available on YouTube. This is not one of those that's available. But at some way, this movie is old enough that it should be easy to get your hands on it. So you can see another angle here of Iris. They're watching Roy play, and you can see some of the hats on the guys in the background. There's a really great Panama hat right behind her, with another one of those like red sweatbands, like a very thick ribbon. So, some great hats in here. And, and then eventually she meets up with Roy, and they kind of like rekindle some of that magic. And the movie, I won't go into too much more detail, but again, just a great. And then we have this character, Memo Paris, which is another form of evil or temptation in this movie, right? She's kind of like another woman that essentially is Bump Bailey's girlfriend. And as soon as Bump is out of the picture, she sets her sights on Roy, right? Roy's the next big thing. And Memo's after her. So that's another form of temptation. And then the third, like kind of the three-headed monster, would be the owner. The owner is a guy that's intent. He's an evil guy. He's on intent on making sure the team fails because he has a financial interest in it failing. And it's kind of like that second shot of Roy to overcome evil in the movie. Really, really good stuff. Yeah, Ian says it can be rented. Yeah. It's a really easy movie to find. Like I said, you'll probably end up seeing it if you have some kind of subscription. You'll probably find it really easily. Yeah, you can rent it on YouTube. There you go. Thank you, Ian. I appreciate that. Yeah, I forgot that YouTube also rents you movies. Yeah, this is a movie worth owning, to be honest. Like, it's a movie you can repeatedly watch, especially if you're a baseball fan. But even if you're not a baseball fan, if you're just a fan of hats and good stories, I think this movie is worth it. So I won't go too much into it. This is kind of another shot of one of the younger fans. Just so many great flat caps and fedoras. I think you got some Hamburgs in here as well. Some bowlers, obviously, I've already shown you. And some, some great Panamas. Just a nice cross section of hats in this movie. But yeah, I won't spoil the rest of the movie, but I wanted to just kind of introduce this, and what a great story. I mean, I got to tell you, in terms of right, I talked about the analogies to real life events, right? I'm trying to remember. There was a baseball player, I believe his name was Whitekus, and I think it was 1949 that he was shot. So there has that kind of that tie to real life events. Yeah, there you go. I like that Gatsby cat. Yeah, there's some really good ones in here. For me, obviously, there's the tie to Babe Ruth. A lot of folks will make mention of Ted Williams. I think even Robert Redford made mention to him tailoring his swing to kind of look like Ted Williams. Ted Williams was a great Boston Red Sox hitter, right? Considered by many to be the greatest, at least greatest left-handed hitter of all time, if not the greatest hitter of all time. He was prodigious with his home run ability, as well as his ability to hit for average, right? He's the last guy in Major League Baseball to bat over 400, right? I think he batted 406. That's never been done since, right? And so there's definitely some similarities to Ted Williams, to Babe Ruth, right? Getting a little bit more modern. There's a gentleman that played fairly recently. His name was Josh Hamilton. Now, this guy, his story is very, very similar, right? Except that he didn't get derailed by getting shot. He had a drug habit. This was a kid that was scouted as both a hitter and as a pitcher, right? So you can see some analogies to Roy Hobbs, and end up getting so mixed up into drugs, essentially lost his shot at baseball, but was able to get a second opportunity and made the most of it. Ended up being an all-star, an MVP, and then had a historic home run derby showing at Yankee Stadium during the All-Star game. Just great story. Josh Hamilton also has a book on his life story, which I did read. I forget the name of that book, but it's a really good read. It's a very short read, so I recommend that. And obviously in modern times, if you're watching baseball now, maybe the more modern equivalent would be Shohei Ohtani, who plays for the Dodgers, who's a pitcher and a hitter, ridiculously great hitter, also a very talented pitcher. Again, that's kind of the idea behind the natural, right? It's a guy that could do it all, and Roy could do it all. But being the innocent kid that Roy was, he fell into temptation. He fell under Harriet's web, and essentially lost a good chunk of his life, of his baseball life in particular, right? His prime years, but was able to get a second shot, not just to prove to the world that he was the best, right? But also to best, the modern evils, right? The media that was using him or tends to use athletes, the women that tend to try to get and distract athletes, these male athletes, and get them into trouble, as well as the ownership, right? That some of these baseball players deal with, where sometimes the owners have kind of ulterior motives, right? And maybe just not just owners, but just robber barons all together, right? So it really is such a great story. Man, you can rewatch. Like I said, I've seen this movie probably 100 times at this point. Maybe that's slightly exaggerated, but it feels like it's been 100 times, right? Because this is a movie. Anytime I flip through the channels and I see it on, I always keep it there, right? I always watch it because the story is so good from beginning to end, right? It's captivating. And again, even if you're not a baseball fan, even if you're just a hat fan or just a fan of good movies, this movie holds up. Robert Redford, obviously, storied actor, right? storied Hollywood leading man, this for me is one of his best performances and one of his most iconic movies. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I'm pretty sure I didn't even come close to doing this movie justice, but definitely check out The Natural, right? Like I said, definitely a hat movie, definitely a baseball, for a lot of folks, the baseball movie, and for some folks, the movie of all time. So maybe I won't go that far, right? For me, still The Godfather, part 1 and part 2 would surpass something like this. But in terms of baseball movies, it's hard to beat this, to beat The Natural. So shout out to Nathan for recommending this. Man, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to share about this movie. I think I talked about the analogies to real events. We talked about where it came from in terms of like the author that in the novel, right? Yeah, definitely check it out. Like I said, if you're not into movies and you just want to read the book, let me know. Read the book and let me know how it is. I'm not like I said, I'm not very well read, but I'm sure the book is great as well. So yeah, that was The Natural. Again, very short and sweet. I really enjoyed this movie. This is one of those, I think this, Field of Dreams, and a couple other movies that I consider like the greatest baseball movies of all time. Field of Dreams is up there as well. Not coincidentally, also takes place in Iowa, right? Ian says, interesting show, especially for an Englishman. Somebody's trying to reach out to me. All right. I don't know who that was, but they'll have to wait. But yeah, interesting show, especially for an Englishman who knows little about baseball. Yeah. Again, it's a classic movie. And I just think the story holds, even if you're not into baseball. It's just an intriguing story. Very heartwarming. Like I said, just the part about the dad, like when he reminisces about the dad and with the fedoras, man, that's almost like almost a tearjerker there, right? So shout out to my dad. He just had a birthday recently, turned 87. Shout out to you, Dad. 87 years young. I definitely, that scene, brought back a lot of memories, me and my dad, as well as me and my son. So yeah, that has been Fedora Friday number 23. Like I mentioned before, on my way to Puerto Rico this week. So next week, as far as I know, there will be no Hat Tuesday nor Fedora Friday, but we'll pick it up the subsequent week, right? We'll pick up on Hat Tuesday number 24, barring any unforeseen circumstances, all right? But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I know I did. Again, I know I didn't do it justice, but hopefully I gave you a little bit of a flavor. I'm still waiting to kind of get the hat giveaway over to my friend Heath, who just had a baby. So had a little baby girl. So shout out to you, Heath. Once you're ready, we'll make plans and I'll get you this fedora in your hands. And then we'll start working towards the next giveaway, right? So stay tuned. I want to give a shout out to Nathan and to Paul for joining me on screen. Shout out to Ian and to Jedi for joining me in the chat room, right? And it's going to be a week, and hopefully you guys won't miss me too much. But you know how I'm going to leave you, right? Right? The one thing got to do, regardless, again, support the channel, support the good folks on the channel. But even if you don't, the one thing you got to do, right? It's non-negotiable, or else we'll get Harriet after you. Maybe we won't. Damn, yeah, that's a little too harsh, right? Hopefully she won't do anything to you, especially if you're not an athlete, right? Maybe you should just go boop and hit the subscribe button, right? But the one thing you got to do, no matter what, is that you gotta stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao, everybody.